Moving on, our next speaker is Mr. Prajakth Rawat, co-founder at Applyfy and founder, the Hub for Startups. Prajakth is an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship evangelist. His personal goal in life is to encourage and assist 100,000 people to become entrepreneurs. Prajakth helps startups, understands the dynamics of business, and assists them in developing meaningful business plans. Between 2004 to 2007, he had taken a 3-year sabbatical to be the Asia Director for TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs, a global non-profit organization focused on promoting entrepreneurship. At TIE, he was primarily focused on helping entrepreneurs in India connect with the most emerging early-stage investor community. May I invite him to come forward and share his views on branding and marketing strategies for startups and how ad agencies can service startups.
Thank you very much for that rather generous introduction. Yes. Prahlad, it's a rare honor for me to be speaking in front of you. You know, when I started my career in advertising about 23 years back, Prahlad was a very established producer and I was working as an account executive. My only role in that meeting was to take notes of what you had said, and I had a fantastic experience doing that. So, you know, after so many years to be speaking to you in front of you is a absolute delight. That's not my presentation. Yeah, that's already there. Okay. Oh damn, because of the Mac and Windows connectivity, the fonts have gone in. I hope that the formatting hasn't changed. But the question that I want to explore in today's conversation is, can startups be profitable clients for ad agencies, marketing companies, and indeed, you know, not just about advertising and marketing agencies, but any other service providers, legal firms, printers, vendors, any other companies that will have a product or service to sell to startups. We typically tend to ignore that as a category. I think it's a fairly large category, it's a growing category, and if we don't find ways and means of addressing that community, we may run into a bit of a losing the opportunity kind of. But the point is that startups are always going to be resource-starved, they're going to be cash-strapped, and is there a profitable way of looking at companies? Or profitable way in which companies can engage with startups? What am I doing wrong? In the meanwhile, can you just flip over to the next one? So there are 3 conversations or 3 topics that I want to explore today. I don't have all the right answers, but what I want to do is put these topics up for conversation and figure out if there's a way in which companies can deal with startups. One, I want to establish that startups is a large opportunity, and I think there is a lot of media hype about startups, etc. But exactly how large is that opportunity? I want to put some data and figures on the table to figure out if this is an opportunity that is worth ignoring. Secondly, I want to put out that, you know, working with startups is going to require different models. Startups just won't have the money to pay fees or commissions or other things or the models that we are currently used to working with larger clients, and therefore we'll have to figure out if there's a different model in which we can engage with startups. I believe there are, and I can put out some hypothesis on what would have worked if you had taken equity in some of the startups that were startups at that point of time. And the third is that working with startups is unlike working with larger clients. You will require a different mindset. They are a different breed altogether. They behave differently. Their needs are different. And philosophically, you will have to figure out how these two can be serviced by people who are completely of different nature altogether. Now, in India, in other parts of the world, in Asia, there are hundreds of thousands of people starting up, whether they are VC-funded companies or people, trying to do something on their own. You go to college after college in India and you will be hard-pressed to find even one single business school or engineering college where there isn't a thriving entrepreneurship cell. The quality of what gets taught there is questionable, but the fact that a number of students sign up for entrepreneurship programs in schools and colleges is an indication that there are many people who are aspiring to do things on their own, and I think that's a healthy sign. And these numbers are in literally hundreds of thousands, and we'll see some data as we go along. At the same time, what has happened is the cost of doing business, or cost of starting a business has reduced, which has enabled a lot more people to think of entrepreneurship as a possible career option. We also have a lot of these enablers called accelerators, incubators, early stage funds, co-working spaces, etc., which are all helping first-time entrepreneurs understand how to convert their idea from a PowerPoint into that marketplace. And I think all these are encouraging signs which are creating a large market. But the fact is that all of this large pool of aspiring entrepreneurs, people, some of whom will become successful companies, at the beginning of their journey, all of them are struggling for brand communication and marketing support, because the current model of engagement of advertising agencies, media companies, ad agencies, or marketing and brand companies just does not allow you to engage with startups in any meaningful manner in that way. This is the scene across many cities in India, and it's just not about Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, etc. But you go to Hubli, you go to Mysore, you go to Dharwad, you go to Jammu, you go to Jabalpur. There are lots of these co-working spaces and things. The Department of Science and Technology in India has created about 120 incubators or accelerators in education institutions across the country. The quality of what they do inside might be questionable, but at least the plumbing is fixed in the sense that there are these places available and things are improving around it. In addition, there are hundreds of these private spaces that are coming up. This is an example of what is happening in Cochin in Kerala, which is one of the largest incubation spaces for telecom-focused startup ventures. Amazing stuff happens there. Absolutely stunning stuff happens there in terms of what they do. This is where people sit together. Lots of companies are working together, sharing ideas. Some of them fail, some of them succeed. But these are places where a lot of aspiration is getting an opportunity to get converted from PowerPoint or a concept into this. Now, this is an example of what is happening in Paris. This is a railway station that is getting converted, where thousands of companies will be able to sit and start co-creating companies. What is an incubation center or an accelerator? Accelerator or an incubator are programs where you join them for anywhere between, say, 3 months to 12 months. You share spaces, you share resources, you learn from each other, and so on and so forth. And some of these people then progress on to becoming successful companies. Some of them fail. But because these are co-sharing places, the cost of starting up actually reduces quite a bit. And, but the fact is that out of every 10, 15, 20 companies that you will see as startup, maybe one of them will succeed. Now, how do you therefore identify that 1 or 2 or 3 potential winners? There is a solution for that as well. Most of these accelerator programs, incubators that are there, have something called a demo day, which is they run these companies through a program of maybe 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, depending on how the program is. And at the end of the program, they showcase their best in what is called a demo day. And typically investors and potential clients, etc., are invited for these demo days. That curated list is an ideal ground for or a hunting ground for potential clients, because these are likely to be, at least some of them are likely to be potential winners in the future. It does not mean that the rest don't have an opportunity to win, but the point is this is a curated list. So you don't really have to go after thousands of companies to figure out where I could lay my bets on. The numbers are, absolutely, completely, stunning in terms of. So these are online platforms where startups are able to put in their profiles, and companies and investors are able to, put that in. Gust and AngelList are in the US, and there are hundreds of thousands of companies there. Let's Venture, which is a company which started about a year ago, already has about 2,000 plus curated profiles, and plus they have invested in about 15 or they have helped about 15 odd companies get investments. Their target next year is to take it from anywhere between 50 to 75 companies. These are 50 to 75 companies that investors who typically have or at least claim to know that they will be able to sniff out potential winners are putting their money behind. These companies would have got anywhere between 1 crore to 5 crores in terms of funding, which means not only are they potentially likely to succeed, they also have some amount of capital available to perhaps invest in brand and marketing and other things. And across the world, you see around, there is a lot of action happening in the media. After media report, you will see that India, China, including things like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity happening, anywhere in the place. In India, I don't think we've had a better time to become an entrepreneur ever. There is a lot of assistance available. Mentoring has got a lot more organized through these boot camps, accelerators, incubators, and so on and so forth. Also, one of the things that has happened is a lot of parents are now okay to letting their children give up a job in Infosys and try something on their own. One, because we have started celebrating even modest successes in media, which is a good thing because then parents get a validation of what the children will do. But the other thing that I'm observing is that as a society, we have started becoming a lot more accepting of failures and understanding that failures is a part of a startup journey. Because of all of these reasons, I think there's an extremely large market of opportunity that if we don't tap into, we might be missing on something else or the other. The other point that I think is going to create thousands of new enterprises is this whole Make in India program and the 100 Smart Cities program that the government of India is putting together. There are policies in place, at least the intent is in place. Now, whether that happens soon or whether that takes time is a different matter altogether. But as and when that happens, it is going to create a large number of newer enterprises. And as advertising agencies, marketing companies, etc., it might be an interesting opportunity to figure out how to deal with that opportunity. And by and large, I mean, if you look at the number of problems that we have in the world, we need new innovators, new risk takers to come in and solve those problems. It will be entrepreneurs who will solve those problems. As a society, we need a lot more entrepreneurs to succeed. And they will be. But the point is that a lot of these people need positioning or support on some of these things. The communication, by and large, if you look at Indian startups and compare them to what is happening in Silicon Valley or Boston or Israel, you will figure out that our team's abilities to communicate, including their presentation decks, etc., are so pathetic. If we are not able to communicate our stories well, unlikely that we will be able to convince customers. Exactly the same issues that larger companies have as well. But at startups, they somehow tend to do it in-house because professional help nahi mila to ghar ke andar hi kar liya iske andar se. But that's a significant opportunity area that we need to look at. But the same models that we are used to working with larger or mid-sized clients who have the ability to pay fees and commissions, that model isn't likely to work because these guys just don't have the money to pay at this point of time. But then how do you work with clients? Because at the end of the day, agencies have to pay your own bills as well. But if you were to think of not in terms of fees, but what is the value creation that can happen? Can I play for the upside? It's exactly like the investor mindset. What do angel investors do? Angel investors invest in 10 startups, 5 or 6 of them they know will fail, no problem at all. They lose their money in that. 2 or 3 of them will give them 2 or 3 times the return. And maybe 1 out of the 10, 15 companies will be a blowout success, which not only pays up for the failures and the money that they lost there, but makes up more than adequate for that. That's the only way the investing industry works. And perhaps that's the kind of approach that we might want to consider. Look at all of these large companies that we today consider extremely successful companies with billions of dollars of valuation, hundreds of millions of dollars of investments, and therefore larger budgets. And they are dream clients for anyone, irrespective of what service that you provide. But these were all startups. 5 or 7 or 10 years ago, if you were involved with them and if you had stayed with them, there's a significant amount of value that you would have been able to create for your company, as well as a very extremely lucrative client. If you were to take equity instead of commissions, let's look at it. I mean, if 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, which is $10,000 worth of fees that you may have sacrificed if you were dealing with Flipkart is 7 or 8 years ago and instead taken equity, they would probably, depending on how well you negotiated, you could have got 0.2 or 0.5%. At current valuation, that would have been anywhere between 5 to $10 million, which is about 60 crores in about 5 or 7 years' time. But the point is that only 1 out of 20, 30 companies that you deal with is likely to succeed and go to that level of, or some level of success. This might be an extreme case, but even modest successes would have still got you $3, $4, $5 million in. So therefore, the model can't be about one-on-one engagement. But I think given the kind of things that startups require, it might be possible for you to productize that offering and figure out if there is a way in which one-to-many engagements will work with startups. So what they need is, basic things. Is it possible for example, rather than doing one-on-one consulting and going to the client's office and spending 3 hours explaining how this is done, is it possible for us to do workshops for 20 startups together as an agency and say, okay, you 20 are clients, let me do these group sessions, etc., and some of these things. Is it possible for us to create a separate team that will work with these things? And there is a alternate force that is available, resource base that is available. Women who typically take up a sabbatical after kids or whatever else. Now that kind of a base, many of these larger companies are using that base as an extremely efficient talent pool that is available. Make My Trip has 1,000+ women who are called their holiday experts who are working from home. These are women who have taken a sabbatical or have taken a break from job because they had a kid or whatever other reasons would be. These people are working from home and doing it extremely efficiently. Of course, there's a technology platform and all that has been created, but the same models can apply in this work as well. Startups have very specific needs. I mean, they need brand positioning, brand personality, brand identity. These are things that they have absolutely no clue about, especially if these startups are about, created by technology techies who become founders. They need to have a clear investment deck. They need to communicate their story well. They need brand identity. They need packaging. All of that is so haphazardly done. It's just so haphazardly done today that some level of help within that will be an interesting one. And the last point that I want to make is that, startups are not smaller versions of medium or large clients. They are a completely different breed altogether. This is a place where things are likely to be extremely fluid. Their assumptions are not tested. The product is, still being refined, being developed. Who they will sell to is still being tested. They might want to go to 3 different audiences and figure out कि इसमें चलता है क्या उसमें चलता है. There's nothing wrong in that. That's the nature of the beast. That's the only way they are able to evolve from a PowerPoint onto a product. And it's very different, therefore, from the way we take briefs from our clients in the larger sense. नहीं पहला आपका target audience sharply define करके बता. अरे यार इसको पता ही नहीं है target audience को है, because he's in the process of discovering that entire thing. Similarly, price points, features, brand positioning, all of that will evolve over a period of time. Experimentation is in the DNA of startups, and therefore, unless as service providers we have the ability to adapt to their way of working, this relationship isn't going to work. So how can agencies work with startups? One, I think a nice hunting ground would be to engage with investors and accelerators, all of whom put some amount of capital into that company. Investors who put in anywhere between, say, 1 crore to 20-25 crores in that company would be a nice guy. Okay, can you tell me which are the 3 companies that you are going to invest in, and therefore can we work with them? Can you help us understand what the specific requirements would be? Help them assist in getting to that next milestone, which will help them get that next capital. Because if you indeed end up working for equity, there's no point in having equity unless you are able to sell it to somebody else at that next level, and that next level will be the next round of investors that will come in. And because you will have to work not with one or two startups, but unless you work with 10, 20 startups, or at least 20 startups, you are not going to be able to identify that one or two potential winners. And therefore, you will need to have a quick process of figuring out which are the guys that are not progressing anywhere, drop them and get new ones in the kitty. At any point of time, you will need to have a churn of about 20 companies that you are dealing with. So in summary, I think it's a large opportunity. I do believe it's going to increase. It's an opportunity that really requires support in advertising and marketing. But one out of many is likely to succeed, and therefore you will need to have a productized version of an offering that allows people to use professional services. The model will have to change. You might have to think of taking equity in terms of instead of fees and commissions. And it might be interesting, or it might be necessary, if just not interesting, to create a separate division, maybe invest in 2 or 3 people who are saying, okay, you go after the startup opportunity, let's figure out what happens as a result of that. I think if you play it in the mid to long term and look at it from a 3 to 5 year horizon rather than is quarter mein mera isme se kitna nikla, I think this might be a fairly profitable decision to do. Thank you. This is about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I call myself an entrepreneurship evangelist. I want more and more people to start up and think about becoming entrepreneurs. I therefore use every opportunity to talk at colleges to college students to help them understand entrepreneurship as a potential career option. I run a platform called the Hub for Startups. That's a resource center for first-time entrepreneurs. Thank you. I'm on time. Any questions, or are we out of time? Yes, sir.
Have you ever considered or advocated the business of distribution of small budget films? Because big budget films have a momentum which, even if they're shitty films, recover their monies regardless of how much they spend, depending on the star cast. But there are a whole lot of now film being made which deserve an audience, don't get one, because it's too expensive. It costs anywhere from 5 to 10 crores to actually do the publicity of a film, when the film is only costing 3 to 4. So it becomes completely unviable. To market a small film is a very special animal. And there are no companies right now in the country that actually take those up and promote them in their own way to find an audience for them. What would you suggest?
No, I think it's a significant opportunity, but it's not an opportunity that's ignored. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, I have come across at least 5 entrepreneurs, some college student-led entrepreneurs, and some people from the industry who've come in to look at these things. I think in the next 1 or 2 years, we will have 1 or 2 disruptive models. For example, there were people who had thought about creating a channel on YouTube which will be about interest-specific, user-tagged and user-rated movies on YouTube. So, why do I need to see it on TV, or why do I need to go and see it somewhere else? Why won't I be able to discover onto that? So I do believe it's a significant opportunity. I think it will also have investor backing and interest within that. It's just that we haven't had a sensible plan yet which will do this at scale. See, also the other thing is that some startups just don't have the luxury of being startups in that real sense. Movie making, movie distribution is one of those things. It's an interesting chicken and egg situation. Unless you have a bank of movie makers, you will not have the audiences. And unless you have the audiences, you won't be able to get that. And therefore, for solving that problem, you need somebody with a larger vision who will be able to set that foundation right. But I do agree that it's a large opportunity that will get interest from every stakeholder.
No, because there are, out of the 600 films that are being made in the country today, there are, I think, 15 stars that are being chased by 600 films.
Yes.
They can maximum do 2 films a year.
Yes.
So which means that those 15 stars eventually end up making only 30 films. What happens to the rest of the films? The rest of the films either have to wait, or they have to make smaller films without the stars.
Yeah.
Now, that means that at least 100 to 150 small films are being made every year in this country which don't get a proper release.
And, sir, much like there are businesses, like say, for example, a healthcare company will say, okay, let me figure out how I can support healthcare entrepreneurs. Pretty much, if you and few of your, senior colleagues were to come together and say, okay, how can we support young talent that wants to create films? I think I will be able to pull together some other stakeholders in the entrepreneurship space to create an accelerator focused on film and, advertising filmmaking fraternity. And I think that would be it can be a transformational idea in the creative space.
Because some of the films manage word of mouth. Some of the films just...
But those are exceptions. I mean, those would be
the
extreme
because
ends of
you
that.
must see what is happening today is because there are more movies being made than there are theatres. So they'll give you 1 week to try and at least get 50% audience. And the fact is that when you don't support it with advertising and with large amounts of publicity, it takes 3 weeks to actually get the audience.
Yeah.
So you have to be around for 3 weeks to be able to get word of mouth to pull the audience in. They're never given that chance.
No, absolutely. And this problem needs to be solved at a business model level rather than at a, but there's a great opportunity. Would love to get your guidance and figure out if there's something that we can do to support this community. But thank you, sir, for that.
Yeah.
Any other, I think you had one question. You said.
Mine is more at the psychological level because I had attended a seminar where somebody was talking about entrepreneurship is in the mind. An employee who takes ownership of his work and spends countless hours can also be treated as an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. I think Sudhakar had mentioned in his thing that it is about an entrepreneurial mindset, which is about saying taking ownership and taking that. But at the end of the day, if you look at entrepreneur in the truer sense, it's about somebody who's willing to sacrifice. There's a nice sentence about saying that most entrepreneurs live the current part of their life in a way that most people won't, so they can live the rest of their life in the way that most people can't. These are people who work 20 hours for themselves so that they don't have to work 8 hours for someone else. So, I mean, yes, there are people who will be entrepreneurial in the way they work. And companies like, say, for example, ICICI Bank, HCL, etc., has created several intrapreneurs, as they call it, which is, you want to start a new division, you want to start a new project, here's the capital, here's the resources, go and run it like a startup. Some people have that startup in their DNA. Google, which I think Prahlad mentioned in the morning, is a company of that nature, right? It gives entrepreneurial opportunities to people. But you're right, I mean, it is about an entrepreneurial mindset, irrespective of whether you start a company or you don't. Right. Thank you, everyone.
That was